All right, what's up, family? Let's do this. I'm absolutely pumped. This is just firepower. I don't really know how I'm supposed to follow up Eric and Seth. After that, my fingers started cramping from that. I'm excited to wrap this thing up. When I went through this, guys, I got it done in 17 minutes. So I'm gonna talk even faster than when I practiced, and let's get all this done so you guys can get on with your lives. I grew up watching NASCAR every Sunday with my dad, which most of you probably are like, that's probably not a very Minnesota thing. Like, why weren't you like building igloos or trying to find Bigfoot in the tundra or something? But my entire life, my dad and grandpa just absolutely loved it. So I remember one of the biggest races that they enjoyed watching that I always got pumped about because my favorite driver was in it was Talladega. So if you're not a NASCAR fan, essentially to keep it simple for you, this is a race where essentially they're racing full throttle, 180, 200 miles an hour for 500 plus miles. Now, I didn't know growing up when I was younger until I was like a teenager that these cars at this race have these things called restrictor plates, right? So restrictor plates essentially limits the top speed that a car can go, right? So it kind of provides an equal playing field also for insurance reasons. Literally, like people could die going extra fast without the restrictor plate. So they've done some studies though and some estimates that if they took the restrictor plates off of the car at this racetrack, they could go upwards of 250 miles an hour already over the top speed of 200 miles an hour. So 50 miles an hour extra. Okay, so today I want to pose the question to start. The question I want to pose for y'all before we jump in is what if we removed the restrictor plate from your business? All right, what would be possible if you removed that restrictor plate you have in your business? Okay, so I was asked to give this message essentially because I've basically started where most of you guys started in this job, selling 35 to 50K a year in college, sold 120K a couple years out of college. And then I started seeing some significant growth over the last 5 to 6 years, right? So to give you some background, in 2015, I sold about 120 grand. 2016, I jumped to 255. It's when I joined events. 2017 was 330K. 2018, 425. 2019, 512. 2020, I learned how to golf and sold 300K, 300 grand. And there was this thing called COVID that happened. And then last year, I sold just over 800. Okay. So today, I'm going to talk about what it looked like to make those jumps and what it took to make my biggest jump last year to 800K. Now, I know that this call, we got people that have sold 100 grand on this call. We've got Curtis who sold 1.2 million. So my goal is to try to give you guys some business pillars that you guys can kind of implement in any area of the business to give you guys repeatable growth. So I can look at each one of those years and I can tell you one thing, right? Every single year that led to those growths in every year. I can also tell you the decrease, right, of what happened in 2020. But some quick things that I noticed after reflecting on these numbers. And a 200 to 300K rep, like they look at their schedule and they see a bunch of open spots and add as much work as they possibly can. Like the 400 to 500K version, like still looks at the bigger, like the bigger events and tries to focus and put more energy into that. Might slim down on a few less events, right? And then the 800K version of me last year looked at the bigger picture, like perspective, and took the months that I had that were the biggest weaknesses and just added some things to be able to grow those. But the big thing is I looked at key events and I focused on the preparation, the mindset leading up to those events, right? So there are habits, right, that differentiate a 200, 500, 800K $1 million reps. And I'm going to do my best to kind of share those throughout this message. So it's really hard, to be honest, when I wrote this to try to explain in 20 minutes, like how to grow to 800K a year and how that happened, how 300K growth over my biggest year ever of 500 grand to that, and also 500K growth over 2020. But I'm going to do my best to give you guys some practical steps. So the first step I have is use the tools that are in your existing toolbox. I feel like I do this all the time where I like $1 million idea that runs through my head and I go grab lunch and then I can't remember what the heck I just thought of. That I think I've got like 10 of them in my subconscious. So one day I'm going to be a millionaire. It's going to be great. But the reason Cutco has provided us with so many conferences, retreats, summits, it's essentially to help us get better at our job, right? And in my opinion, the most underutilized tool within Cutco is literally the notes you already have that you've just never put into practice. I remember in 2019, I just felt really overwhelmed. I was like, man, I've coached with somebody the last 6 years in a row. And I just remember feeling like I just had this epiphany where I'm like, I've invested so much time, so much money and into coaching. And I just feel like I have so much information and I feel like I'm really not actually implementing most of it. Right. So I attribute a lot of the success in 2021, guys, to just the messages that were given at net from 2016 to 2020. I look back at messages that I remember like looking at notes that Josh and I, when we coached in 2013 on mindset and how to handle adversity that I looked at this last year, right? It's easier said than done, but are you actually committing to the time to reviewing the things you already know but you haven't put into practice yet, right? The habit of the 200K rep, right, is it's a person that is committed to taking those notes, and they're diligent in taking notes, and they have eagerness to use it, but they just never do any of it, right? The 500K rep is a person that's like, took a lot of notes on a lot of those things and has done some of it, but hasn't done most of the things that they should be doing. And the $1 million rep, right, is a person that's practicing what they preach, right? So they're using those tools and they're also making it an art form by literally doing it over and over and over, right? The only reason I was given the opportunity to give the new customer message at NetGuys was last year I was just so intentional about practicing my new customer script. And I just got really good at it because I just kept doing it over and over and over, putting one thing in, taking one things out, putting one thing in, taking one things out, right? The scripts here we have are so kick-ass, right? But have you actually done the repeatable action enough to make it an art, right? I'm so fortunate to have worked with Curtis last year for the 6 days that I got with you, Curtis. Seeing him sell an Alti upgrade in 3 minutes without even cutting a freaking potato was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It was masterful, right? Seeing Seth be able to upserve a person into a Cutco fan set that already has an ultimate set is just beautiful, right? Hearing Josh, like working at Tulsa with him last year, frame in building into the Cutco kitchen with every single freaking god dang customer is literally the audible version of Picasso. It's amazing, right? My favorite book on the earth, if you haven't read it yet, is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And he says, we don't rise to the level of our goals, but we fall to the level of our systems, right? Your goal is your desired outcome, right? Your system is a collection of daily habits that get you there, right? So I'll say that again. We don't rise to the level of our goals, but we fall to the level of our systems, right? Curtis has not accumulated 20,000 customers, guys, overnight, right? Rob Robincheck, right, has not had thousands of business gift orders, CPO business gift orders, and hundreds of reorders, right, overnight in the last 4 years by accident. I remember this, like, SE2 2014. It was my first ever like moment where I had a breakthrough where I tried to sell 34 grand in 17 days just to beat my best friend's record from the previous year. And I remember I had this epiphany. I was like, man, if I hit this goal, man, I'm gonna earn $1,000 a day, right? So I remember just like I gotta act as if, right, for 17 days, I gotta act as if I'm a person that's earning $1,000 a day, which is 365 grand a year. And for me at the time, that was the craziest thing ever, right? So I remember I got up at 4:30 in the morning to work out. I was like, that's probably what a person who makes $1,000 a day does. I showed up to meetings and appointments on time. I've made a ton of phone calls. My God, right? That's probably what a person that makes $1,000 a day does, right? I ate right. I didn't like give in to fast food because I'm like, a person that's earning $1,000 a day can't be like having that much energy eating crap all day, right? So that 2-week goal, I hit my goal. But the most powerful learning moment from those 2 weeks was I fell to the level of my systems, of my daily habits, and my results were rewarded because of that. So I ask you, right, like what are your daily habits, right? Are they habits that are putting you in a place of abundance, right? Are you journaling? Are you meditating, right? Are you doing the daily practices that all of the people that we hear personal growth talks about are actually doing? Are you actually doing those things? Or are you just talking about it, right? Are you exercising on a regular basis, right? Or do you skip it because you're tired, right? Are you getting fresh air a lot? Or are you just going, again, inside your basement and playing video games all day when you're tired? Right? Are you thinking about what you want, or are you just kind of getting through and going through the motions of the daily grind? Right? Now, the question remains, how do you actually go out and achieve the big goals that happen after you set up some habits, right? So the second step is trust the process, right? It is a process. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the average overnight success takes 10 years, right? There's a steady progression from 100, 200 to 800 to a million to eventually 2 million. Curtis, right? In a year. Right, how I look at the profession is you're $100,000 to $300,000 rep, you're hustling, right? 400 to 600K rep, right? You're a top executive, and you're 750K plus, a million plus, right? Like you're looking at this business from a CEO standpoint, right? When's the last time you asked yourself, how am I spending my time? The 200K rep is still doing a lot of events, right? They're doing a ton of events, right? They're hustling, they're grinding, they're doing 50 events in a year with 200 service calls and trying to get their just customer acquisition mode, right? The 500K a year rep is still doing a lot of events. When I sold 500K, I looked back, guys, I did 36 events in 2019, right? And I'm still just grinding, acquiring customers. The 800K a year rep, right, never stops acquiring customers, but is starting to truly maximize, right, their number one list, which is their past customers. And then the next question is, how do you make that sustainable year after year after year, right? So the next tip is the 5% rule, okay? What would it look like for you guys to have your best year ever again while working less? Right? Dane Espegard shared some wisdom with me a few years ago that is applied to his life that I think would be helpful to all of you if you haven't heard it already. Dane essentially, right? Again, everybody knows Dane. He's essentially the Curtis of managers, right? He did $4.8 million in his office last year. The next closest office was like $1.5 million behind him, right? So I'm lucky he's my manager, but I don't know if anybody here has ever experienced burning out. I know I have, right? The burnout effect is very real in this business if you're not careful. And I know I've experienced it several times. That's just a part of being human, and that's okay, right? Damon imparted the wisdom in me that's helped me and also helped his office grow literally every year since 2010, but it has also created more time away from work in the process. So after each year, what Dane does is he goes back into each campaign and he looks like what it would look like to work 5% less, but still be able to grow his business. So what does that look like in your business? Right? What does it look like in your business? If you're sitting at 100 to 200,000 annually right now, I challenge you, right, to maybe keep the pedal to the metal and really hit the ground running to keep gaining those customers. But I bet you could find an extra 3 days in the spring where you might have kind of had 1 foot in, 1 foot out of work, right? And go do a fun trip or go chalk something off your dreams list that is extremely fulfilling to you, right? The 800K version of me last year, guys, took a couple smaller events out and replaced it with fulfilling experiences from work outside of work, right? Or personal growth time. And I didn't really know what to expect last year, honestly, guys, right? I sold 800 grand. And to be honest, I did not expect that, right? But I put my personal time in first last year, even not knowing what was going to happen around with events. And what was great about it is that those personal times that I put aside, right, to feel good about my schedule, but also to feel good about where my personal life was, gave me energy. So when it was time to go key events, I was on a mission, right? The 200 to 500K version of me, right? I didn't know what it would be like. I didn't know what to do with my freaking hands between 200 to 500K if I wasn't working. I was like, I feel like I got to be working, right? But the 800K version knew that, like, when to turn it on, right? And also when to turn it off, right? The personal time away and the intentional prep leading up to the key events is the difference maker, okay? So a couple ideas on creating long-lasting and sustainable and repeatable growth for you guys. First off, what packages are you selling? Seth just like gave an amazing message, and it's so applicable to what I'm about to say. I've been able to witness Seth sell freaking for the last like 6 years at events, every single different type of fair, home show, sell ulti upgrade after ulti upgrade after ultimate upgrade. It's like clockwork because Seth took the extra 45 seconds with each of those customers to sell a freaking spreader, turning fork, and a butcher knife in the homemaker, so he didn't have to customize it to close it. Right? Are you consistent with your packaging, or are you customizing every single set that you sell? You want easy and repeatable growth? The easiest way to do it, guys, is to sell like the same 5 pieces to like every person that buys a 5-piece. To sell a homemaker to everybody that buys a homemaker, not some customized stuff, right? And when you got to do it, you got to close the deal. That's okay. But what 95% of your homemakers last year or this year are actual homemakers. So in 3 years, when you see that customer that loves their Cutco, you show them what comes in an ultimate upgrade. They're A, conditioned to already buying packages, and B, they're just like, take my money. I love Cutco, right? Working with Josh at Tulsa, right, was amazing. Like, all we hear from Josh is every customer, every package, every single time. I'm like, yeah. No, it was every customer, every single package, every single time, right? To create long-term sustainable growth, guys, the 800K me is literally just doing the little things that the 200K rep was told to do and the 500K rep knew they needed to do, but the 800K rep actually did them over and over and over again, right? It's all of those little things that add up to the big things, right? It's the rule of compounding that actually adds up. Last year, between July 24th and September 6th, I sold 294 grand, and that was not an accident. Leading up to that 7-week period of time, guys, the previous 6 months, right, I'd worked small bases. I drove 20 hours to work a base. I'd worked 9 hours to work a 2-day home show. I'd worked service events. I worked a car show. I worked everything, right? I was sharpening my axe time after time after time for game time, right? Everyone in this room literally has the opportunity, guys, that 95% of the company wish they could have, that they would cut their freaking right arm off for, right? We get the opportunity to work the Oklahoma, the Tulsa, and the Texas freaking State Fair. And that short 6-week period of time is where we will push to do $3 million freaking dollars, because records are meant to be broken in this dang division. And it's not like you don't start then though, right? You start now, right? You want to know how 800K happened? It's simple. I just do all the things the best reps across the country have been telling me to do, and I do them over and over again, right? So here's a laundry list. You can write as many of these down. This is recorded because for the sake of time, I'm going to try to get out of this. Here's a laundry list of the practical things that created 800K for me last year. Intentionality with talking about the ultimate to every new customer. Mentioning every package with every single customer every single time, even if it's 5 seconds. I invested in steak knives for my ultimate and my signature set. I own a legacy cookware for my booth and at my house. Pitching the idea of the Cutco kitchen to everyone. Putting a piece of flatware in every customer's hand. Asking every customer if they own a business gift or own a business, or if they give business gifts to clients or employees. I recorded making food with the cookware and I shared those videos with customers while selling cookware. Not being lazy with customers and maximizing every single customer, even if it's a freaking table knife that they're missing. Attempting to upserve on every order. I deleted social media and unproductive apps on my phone so I'm not like going a million miles an hour different directions all the time. I role played my scripts and then I recorded myself doing those scripts and then I listened to the recordings. I scripted out those phrases that I feel like I had areas of opportunity in and also needed to get better at. I invested in catalogs, marketing, and social, in marketing with Fast Action. I got an assistant to help with the back end admin so I could spend more time on the stuff that was actually making me money. I upgraded my tablecloths. I put my pride on my shelf, and asked other reps what they were doing and creating defined success. I dropped down with sincerity with every customer. I know average order is the big deal here. I care about average order, but I don't care about average order more than serving the customer who's in front of me that's missing a paring knife, right? Because they might be the person that buys a homemaker and I give them that paring knife for free for their daughter, right? Give back to the people who ask you without hesitation and teach them as much as you're able to. Say hi to as many people as you can that walk past your booth. Say I'm freaking cutting deals to everybody. Get off your phone, fail, and then try again. Experiment with your approaches before fair season. So when fair time hits, you nail it, right? And experiment, have some fun with it. Any of this, does it sound like rocket science? Absolutely not, right? The wild thing is I'm not even the best at all of these things. I just do all of them consistently. All right, am I human? Do I forget some stuff from time to time in my scripts? Absolutely. But it's less and less often because it's my level of intentionality. Okay. Lastly, I'm going to finish with this, guys. All the scripts and booth upgrades are fine and dandy, but the difference between 200K Bert and 800K Bert last year was my mind, right? All up here. Brandon Brown and Matt Graves gave a great message after their first international base in Japan 3 years ago. And they popped off the first couple of days and completely blew what they expected to out of the water when they were in Japan. And you probably noticed this happened at some of your guys' booths last year, right? Whether it was at the fair, whether it was at a home show, certain months or certain events that happened, right? The key that I took home from the idea from them is remove limitations, right? What if you went into a year of events without restrictions of what you thought could happen, but you got rid of the buffer completely of what is realistic, right? Quote unquote, you took the restrictor plate off, right? What if you walked into each day and was like, 10K day, that's cute, right? Seth and I sold 600 grand between us at the 3 fairs in North Star in 32 days last year. I remember sharing this last year, but I feel it's worth mentioning again. Our main focus was to go into each day being open to massive days of being okay with not needing to know how they'd come together. We set the intentionality of gratitude at the beginning of each day. Vibes were off the goddamn charts, and we could do our absolute best and would do our absolute best with every single interaction. Great things happen. Was it an accident? No, right? It was because Seth and I were open, right, to great customers. The universe has a way of sending things to those who are ready to receive it, right? This all stems back to your habits, right? The 800K version of me asked, right, are my habits helping to cultivate abundance and mental fortitude for when I have to overcome adversity, right? The 200 to 500K rep guys struggled. I struggled to even get past the limitation of what was possible. I wouldn't even have been able to see 800K in 2019, right? But the 800K version of me had the sixth sense, abundance. I looked at each event with the lens of when everything goes well, here's what I could sell. Not if, but when. Did things go to plan every day? No, but that didn't matter because I was open to letting the universe provide, right? I just showed up the right way every day. Right? Look at yourself in the mirror. Are you taking action, right, on all of the little things that compound into massive growth? Because if you're not, set the intention to do so, right? And there's no limit to what you can accomplish. To wrap this bad boy up, the next level of CPO is not that far away, right? Go use the tools in your toolbox. Use the 5% rule to find even more satisfaction in your personal life that leaks into your professional life. Upgrade your standards of your habits and keep cultivating that sixth sense of abundance. Your first 25K, 50K, 100K, 150K, 300, 400K fair, right? Which leads to your 200, 500, 800 $1 million year. That's where it starts. It starts today. So who's going to go out and take it? Thanks.